If you're doing these 7 strange things, you need to stop. It's bad for you. If you've been through narcissistic abuse, you might not even realize you're doing things that hurt your mental and emotional health. These behaviors can pop up when you're trying to cope. But the truth is, they're only keeping you stuck in the cycle of abuse. Today, we're going to talk about those strange habits that victims of narcissistic abuse often fall into at home, why they happen, and most importantly, how to break free from them. It's time to stop letting these behaviors control you and start taking back your life. Are you ready for number 1? Excessive caretaking. Being around a narcissist often means bending over backward to meet their every whim, like perfecting their coffee or reshuffling your entire schedule for them. Their approval feels like the only way to keep the peace. Dr. Lindsay Gibson, author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents, explains that people often adopt these behaviors to avoid emotional explosions or rejection. You're managing their emotions to prevent conflict, even if it means ignoring your own needs. It's exhausting, but it feels safer than standing your ground. The thing is, this kind of caretaking becomes a habit, and you might even do it unconsciously. It's like living on autopilot, constantly scanning for ways to keep them happy so you don't have to deal with their rage or cold shoulder. This behavior stems from what psychologists call fawning, a trauma response where you appease someone to avoid harm. But by overcompensating, you're reinforcing their belief that the world should revolve around them. You deserve relationships where care goes both ways, not one where you're always the emotional caretaker. Let's talk about number 2, over-communicating. When you've been through narcissistic abuse, over-communicating becomes almost like a reflex. You might find yourself sending a flurry of messages or overly explaining every little thing to avoid conflict or gain their approval. This behavior often stems from walking on eggshells for so long that silence feels dangerous, like a ticking time bomb. You might think, if I explain myself enough, they'll understand or at least not explode. But the hard truth is, no matter how much you communicate, a narcissist will twist it to fit their narrative. Dr. Ramani Durvasula, a psychologist specializing in narcissistic abuse, explains this dynamic well. You become so focused on not upsetting them that you end up losing your voice in the process. The tricky part is, this over-communicating can linger even when the narcissist is out of your life. You might over-explain to your friends, family, or even at work, as if you're still bracing for criticism or rejection. It's like you're constantly auditioning for approval. Recognizing this habit is the first step toward breaking it. Ask yourself, am I communicating to connect, or am I trying to preempt a reaction? Learning to pause, breathe, and trust that you don't owe anyone an explanation for your existence is where your freedom starts. Let's move on to number 3, sitting in silence for long periods. Silence can feel like both a shield and a trap. You might sit in silence for hours, afraid that saying the wrong thing could spark an argument with the narcissists or lead to punishment. Your brain has decided it's safer to shut down than to risk making a move. This kind of silence isn't peaceful. It's heavy. You're constantly overthinking, replaying past interactions, or mentally rehearsing what you should say next. As Dr. Judith Herman explains in her book, Trauma and Recovery, survivors of chronic trauma often develop strategies of appeasement or withdrawal to minimize danger. Sitting in silence becomes your way of minimizing that danger. It's your brain trying to keep you safe. But here's the tricky part. This silence doesn't stay in the past. Even when you're no longer in an abusive environment, the habit can stick. You might withdraw in new relationships or at work because your mind stays in self-preservation mode. The good news is that you can unlearn this. Start by reminding yourself that silence isn't your only option anymore. Practice speaking up in small, low-risk situations and remind yourself that it's okay to make mistakes. Now, let's continue to number 4. Constantly checking if the doors are locked. Constantly checking if the doors are locked can become a habit that feels impossible to shake if you have gone through narcissistic abuse. It's not just about safety, it's about control. When you've lived in an environment where things were unpredictable or felt out of control, locking the door becomes symbolic. It's like your brain is saying, I need to make sure nothing else gets in that can hurt me. Trauma expert Dr. Stephen Porges, known for his polyvagal theory, explains that trauma puts your nervous system on high alert. It makes you hyper-aware of potential threats. That repeated door checking is your nervous system trying to feel secure in a world that once felt dangerous. What's tricky is this behavior can follow you even after you're safe. You might double or triple check doors, not because you expect danger, but because your body remembers feeling unsafe. While this habit can be frustrating, it's important to give yourself grace. You're not paranoid. You're healing. Over time, with practices like grounding techniques or mindfulness, you can teach your brain to relax and trust again. Locking the door once is enough. Your safety now doesn't depend on your vigilance, but on the fact that you've taken your power back. You shouldn't miss number 5, imitating the narcissist's behavior. You might start picking up the narcissist's behaviors if you've been with them for a long time, often without realizing it. You might find yourself imitating their tone, mannerisms, or attitudes to fit in or avoid conflict. It's not something you consciously decide to do, it's just a survival mechanism. Psychologist Dr. Bill Eddy explains in It's All Your Fault that victims of narcissistic abuse often mirror their abuser's behavior in an attempt to appease them or prevent further conflict. It's a way to blend in, to not stand out too much, and to avoid triggering their anger. But what ends up happening is you lose touch with your authentic self in the process. The strange part is that this mirroring can stick around long after you've left the abusive situation. You might find yourself continuing to adopt narcissistic behaviors in future relationships unconsciously. This happens because your brain gets used to this pattern as a way to protect yourself. Over time, this can affect how you relate to others. Recognizing this is the first step. Remind yourself that you don't have to act like them to get by. You're allowed to break free from those patterns and reconnect with your true self. Are you still up for number 6? Overcleaning the house. As a victim of narcissistic abuse, you might find yourself obsessively cleaning the house as a way to create some sense of control or calm. It's not just about wanting a tidy space. It can be a way to cope with the chaos or unpredictability that comes with the abuse. You might clean obsessively because it's the one thing you can control when everything else feels chaotic. According to Dr. Sherry Campbell, a psychologist and author of Loving Yourself, The Mastery of Being Your Own Person, victims of narcissistic abuse often feel a constant need to maintain control over their environment, especially when they've been subjected to emotional manipulation and instability. In a way, cleaning becomes a way to restore some order to your world. This overcleaning can also stem from the constant fear of criticism. Narcissistic abusers often criticize you, making you clean to avoid their disapproval. It's like your brain is trying to prevent any potential attack or disapproval. The key to breaking this habit is understanding that perfection isn't necessary for peace. It's okay to let go of the constant cleaning and allow yourself the grace to just be, flaws and all. Finally, we're down to number 7. Getting startled and nervous if someone knocks at the door. A simple knock at the door might make you jump or feel suddenly nervous. It's the fear of what might be on the other side. Living in a high-stress environment, where even a knock could lead to conflict, your body learns to react this way. It's like your brain is constantly on alert, anticipating something negative. This constant state of being on edge doesn't go away easily. Even when you're no longer in that toxic environment, you might find yourself still reacting to knocks at the door with a spike of anxiety, as if danger is lurking just outside. Trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk writes in, "The body keeps the score." The trauma changes how we respond to everyday stimuli, often making us hypersensitive to potential threats. It's like your brain is stuck in survival mode. The good news is that over time, with therapy or mindfulness practices, you can retrain your nervous system. You can start to feel safe again, even when someone knocks. It's all about taking small steps to remind your body and mind that you're no longer in danger. Breaking free from these strange behaviors isn't easy, but it's possible. If you're reading this, you're already on the right path. Recognizing that something's not quite right is the first step toward healing. These habits were formed out of survival, but now it's time to unlearn them and reclaim your peace. Remember, healing takes time, and it's okay to take small steps. Be kind to yourself and don't rush the process. With the right support and a little patience, you can leave these old patterns behind and start living a life that's healthier, happier, and free from the shadow of narcissistic abuse.